Good evening. Welcome to the regularly scheduled meeting of the Jefferson County Board of Education on Monday, March 28th, 2022. If you'd please join us for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Now, the very first thing we have to do this evening is actually a very important thing, and you guys get to witness that. It's appointing a new member to the Board of Education because of Mr. Cable's retirement. The first thing we'll do is make a motion to appoint the member. Is there a motion to appoint Mr. Justin Brown to the Board of Education? Thank you, Dr. Joy and Mr. Osborne. All in favor of appointing Mr. Justin Brown to the Board of Education for the term between now and June 30th, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you very much. Now, if I could please ask Mr. Brown to come up, and Ms. Laura Storm is going to come up and swear him in.
Hi, may I have you raise your right hand and repeat after me? I, Justin P. Brown, Sr.,
I, Justin P. Brown, Sr.,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States of America
that I will support the Constitution of the United States of America
and the Constitution of the State of West Virginia,
and the Constitution of the State of West Virginia,
and that I will faithfully discharge
that I will faithfully discharge
the duties of member of the Jefferson County Board of Education
as a member of Jefferson County Board of Education
to the best of my skill and judgment,
to the best of my skill and judgment,
so help me God.
so help me God. Thank you so much.
And while Mr. Brown is signing those, I'll give you a little tidbit about him. Mr. Brown has a bachelor's degree from Hampton University, a master's degree from Virginia Union University. He has a Virginia teaching certificate in history and social studies. He's a former teacher in Jefferson County, and he's currently teaching in Loudoun County. Mr. Brown not only has teaching experience, but he also has parenting experience because he has children in Jefferson County school systems at Washington High School, Charlestown Middle School, and Wright Denny. According to his personnel profile, he adapts to new responsibilities. He's detail-oriented. He functions as a team member, and he has proven communication skills, and he has the ability to solve all of the world's problems. Did I read that correctly?
I try.
Well, welcome, Mr. Brown.
Thank you so much, man.
If you like, you can say a couple words if you choose.
I'd just like to say I'm honored to be part of this prestigious board and the great work they're already doing. And I'm hoping just to help do my part along the way to keep Jefferson County schools at the top level in the state of West Virginia. And I'm just honored to be here with students, staff, and community. And I will try to do my best to fill in the big shoes that Mr. Cable left us for the time I am here. Thank you all for your support. Thank you.
Thank you. And now I believe we have some student recognitions.
We have quite a few student recognitions. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to thank all of the families, the parents, the caregivers, the fans that are here to support our amazing students and see the incredible things that are happening in Jefferson County schools. We have a lot of staff members here this evening as well who are going to help celebrate and support these students as we look at some of the things that they are accomplishing. I'd like to start by inviting Dr. Lee Ebersol to the podium. 6 Jefferson County school students have qualified for the 2022 Young Writers Contest this year, and I'm going to let Dr. Ebersol speak some more about not only the significance of that honor, but the incredible amount of work and talent that goes into that on behalf of the students and the staff who've taught them.
what an honor it is to be before you this evening. I must say a lot of us lately have been paying a lot of attention to basketball, right? And again, the St. Peter's Peacocks. I have really followed them, and I was sad to see them go down yesterday, but they went down in glory. But again, I was also reminded of a favorite author of mine who is from Milledgeville, Georgia, and her name is Flannery O'Connor, and she actually raised peafowl on her farm. And she said something really important, and this is it. She said, "I write to understand what I know." And I'm about to introduce you to 6 young people who understand a great deal about our world. They understand it well enough to use their skills and knowledge as writers to involve us in shared story. So if I may, I'll invite them to come join me on the podium and just come stand by me if you will. The first person I would like to invite to the stage is Scarlett Sanchez. Scarlett is in 2nd grade at Ranson Elementary. Scarlett wrote a story. It was called Salem. In Salem, as she just told me again and reminded me, is a cat that lives on Charlotte's back porch. It was very important to her to say that it was under the covered back porch, but she described how much she cares and protects this cat from other neighborhood cats. So again, welcome. And then you'll notice we have this special thing that you get to hold. And here it is, this wonderful thing that says you're a winner. Thank you. Everyone, could we give a round of applause, please, for Charlotte Sanchez? The next student I would like to invite to the stage is Coraline Ballinger. Coraline is a 3rd grade student at Drisswood Elementary in Miss Murgott's class. We're so grateful she's here. Coraline wrote a brilliant fantasy about her dream school. And her dream school is a very special place where a unicorn is the mascot. And not only that, but it's important to say that not only do children learn to ride horseback there, they also learn to ride camels. Welcome to the stage, if you would, ladies and gentlemen, Coraline Ballinger. Congratulations, Coraline. This is for you. Yay, you. Could you go stand over there, please, dear one? Now this name is familiar to you. This is a 2-time winner of our Young Writers Contest, and this young man's name is Shay Oben. Shay, would you join me please on the stage? Shay is a 5th grade student in Miss Long's class at North Jefferson Elementary. And Shay really wrote a brilliant fantasy, if you will, called The Journey. Now you might think that that's just him traveling somewhere in the world. However, it was a fantasy about, you're welcome, Shay. It was a fantasy about a dandelion. Imagine the journey of a dandelion as those puffs go up into the air and eventually grow into a plant that grows up in someone's household, only later to move again and journey back to the ground from which they came. Again, would you please join me in a round of applause for Shay Oben from North Jefferson. Again, the next Young Writers winner is Evelyn Bailey. Would you join me in welcoming Evelyn Bailey? Evelyn is a 7th grade student at Shepherdstown Middle School. She is in Miss Friend's English class there. And she wrote a truly interesting story, and it's called Plant Boy. Now, it's not like you might think that it's a keeper of plants. Instead, Evelyn did this marvelous thing. Hey there, how are you doing? Where what happened is this plant was lifted and then tossed across the room. And somehow that plant hits the wall, and guess what appears? A 6'3" man. You really need to read that. By the way, ladies and gentlemen, all of these stories are online and are there for your reading pleasure. Please take time to visit the page. And now, this is, yes, join me in giving a round of applause, please, for Evelyn Bailey. Now you're going to hear an echo on this one because we have not 1, but 2 people named Protzman that have won the prize. Now you might ask, how come there are 2 people named Protzman, one from one high school and one from the other? Well, they happen to be sisters. And representing Jefferson High School in Mr. Russell's 9th grade English class is Margaret Protzman. Margaret, would you please come join us here? And Margaret wrote a story that was so full of emotion. I will be honest with you, it was a pleasure to read, but also a great challenge emotionally, because the title of the story is Drowned. And she told the story of what it might be to drown. Now, obviously, as you can see, she's very much with us here. So again, if you will join me in congratulating Margaret Protzman. And again, we would like to invite her sister, please, Emily. Emily Protzman, again, from Washington High School, where she is in Miss Nicholson's 12th grade class. And she wrote a story entitled Guilt by Association. Now, again, this is a true fantasy. You might even call it a pot boiler, because what's going on, there's a great deal of anxiety about what's going on in the family kitchen. And until the very end, the very last sentence of the story, you think that cannibalism is afoot. But you'll need to read the story, if you will, or ask our author what was actually happening there. So again, if you would give a round of applause for these wonderful authors. And again, if you would, please continue to cheer them on. They will all be traveling to Charleston, West Virginia on May 13th with their families and loved ones, where they will participate in the annual in-person, by the way, West Virginia Young Writers Day celebration at the University of Charleston. So we're looking for that. One more round of applause, please, for our young writers.
I've once again made the mistake of following Dr. Ebersol. I'm not nearly as excited or as engaging. Thank you all very much. Congratulations. Let's walk right back the way we came. Down the stairs here. So just follow me down the ramp and we will keep moving. I am incredibly excited about this because I can talk. I used to do that for a living. Writing has not always been my forte. So the fact that you all are learning and doing this so early is wonderful. You'll see if you're following us, we're now passing a sea of white. So I'm going to invite Mary Beth Group to come up and talk to us about some of our student athletes who had incredibly successful seasons, wonderful showings at the state championship tournament, and continue to make us all proud as residents of Jefferson County and employees of Jefferson County Schools. So Principal, Jefferson High School, Mary Beth Group. Round of applause.
Good evening. I'm not going to speak long. I just want to be able to introduce, first and foremost, my girls team who ran me to Charleston. I went to Charleston 3 weeks in a row. I've seen a lot of miles, but for great reasons. With band and basketball, boys and girls, it was awesome trips and worth the trip, no matter what my girls would say. But they did go with a bunch of speed bumps. I walked in to the first game into the Coliseum down there, and they were like, "Oh, you got 3 girls on crutches." I said, "Oh, I do." So, but they hung in there and gave it their all, and I was super proud of them no matter what. So for my girls team, head coach Damon Smith.
Hi, how's everybody doing? Yes, like she said, we did run into a lot of speed bumps towards the end of the year. We finished the year at 16-5. Last year we were 12-0. So I think last year was the first time since 2011 that the team has been to the state tournament, and we made it 2 years in a row. So that's an amazing accomplishment, especially from a group. Thank you. Especially from a school that only has been to the state tournament 3 times prior. So I'm really proud of the girls. So I'm want to introduce my coaching staff. John Hartlandy is not here with us. So we'll start with my assistant, Ronell Newman. My other assistant, Marquise Farmer. and the girls. I have Tiaja J, who is not with us today. She's at work, and Salil Basham, who is doing soccer right now. But first, we'll go with one of the girls that was on crutches. She just got out of her boot today, Justice Lee. Junior Justice Lee. Next, we have freshman Amara Washington. Sophomore Jasmine Taylor. Junior Olivia Hendricks. Sophomore Vicky Hoover. Junior Talia Lindsay. Excuse me. I'm sorry. I'm nervous up here. I'm nervous. Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm nervous. Junior Leah, and I can't remember her last name. I'm so nervous up here. Leah Sweeney, exactly. I'm sorry, Leah. We have another one that was also on crutches is Dalen Hoyler. Freshman. I'm sorry, Leah. Then we have a young lady who is just made the baseball team, the Jefferson baseball team. Grace Dodson, freshman, Grace Dodson. Junior, Mackenzie Brezovic. Also, we just had a young lady that just had surgery on her knee, and that's senior, Heaven Murray. I'm super proud of these ladies. This whole team, we only had one senior, so this whole team will be back next year, and we'll be back at the state tournament again next year.
Come on up so we can get some pictures, Coach. Another round of applause for the Cougars. Thank you all so much for taking the trip to Charleston and for joining us here this evening to be recognized. Greatly appreciated. Don't do that because we need you all healthy next year, please. So I'm going to get a quick picture if you'll all. Yeah. Oh, do you guys remember so slide on down here. And then you all remember when you used to have the Little League stuff and you do one of these? Is anyone's knees not healthy enough? Okay, you stay standing, please. All right, yeah. Anybody not in a brace who can be flexible? All right. One last show of athleticism for the season. Thank you, thank you. Cougars on three. 1, 2, 3. With some enthusiasm. 1, 2, 3. Cougars. There we go. Thank you very, very much. And Mary Beth's job is not done this evening.
So as my girls find a seat, I'd like to also take this time to say we went back with our boys. So I would like to take this time to let my boys know we may not have finished where we wanted to, but we were one step closer. And I'm super proud of you guys. Okay. So my head coach for boys, Tech Lewis.
Just want to say a few words. Can you hear me? Just want to say a few words before I get started. I guess before I start talking about the team real quick, I want to talk about the community of Jefferson County. I've been in the county for 20 years in middle school and high school. This is probably the first year since I've been at Jefferson that we've had that much support just from not just the school. I want to thank Ms. Group, her enthusiasm about basketball, but from the parents, from the community. We got a lot of calls about sponsorships. It's just been a wonderful year. So I wanted to thank everybody for that support first, for supporting those guys who worked really hard this year. So before I call the names, I just want to throw some things out. We were 23-1 this year. Like Ms. Group said, we didn't finish exactly where we wanted to finish, but 23-1 is not too bad. We were the first Jefferson High School team to go undefeated in regular season in school history. So I wanted to make sure they'll never forget that. Also, we were the first team to win a state tournament game in 40 years since 1982. So that was something that was never been done. And then also we went back to back as well. Last year we were 11-5 with the COVID shortened season. And we went to the state tournament for the first time since 2007. And we hadn't gone back to back since 92 and 93. So just wanted to make sure everybody know a little bit of history, and they know a little bit of history because sometimes it gets forgotten. But these guys, they're going to be remembered for years to come. So I'm going to introduce everybody one by one. I'm going to start with my freshman class first. That way I won't forget anybody. Take that back. I'll start my assistant coach. Will Fleming, it's his first year here at Jefferson High School. He came over from Washington High School. He did our JV team this year, did a great job for us. Tommy Murray, he's not present. He's been a long-time assistant of mine since 2012. He's not present today. I want to announce our freshman, Tayshawn Roper. Step forward, Tayshawn. Jamari Jenkins. Adonis Troxel. Jaden Gladney. Ty Vickers. And then we have one sophomore that's not here, Colin Johnson. Sophomore Wyatt Shavely. Sophomore Jared Wilberger. Now, our lone junior on the team, Will Shively. Cameron Johnson's at a visit at Virginia Union University today, so he's not here. Number 3, Cameron Johnson, he's a senior. Bryson Fleming. David Haynes. Darion Massenberg. And our oldest senior, Dayon Taylor. Once again, I just want to thank everybody for their support this year. And these guys were amazing. Hate to see some of them leave, but I'm sure we got some big shoes to fill, especially the young guys. But I wanted to just make sure I let them know that they had an amazing year. They worked super, super hard. I don't know if everybody knows how hard they work in practice. How much we run. So I wanted to make sure everybody knows these guys put it out a lot. It's a lot behind the scenes that you don't see. Even the wins and losses don't show for it. They always put 100%. And I think it showed this year with the 23-1 season. Thank you all.
You guys have done an incredible job. Anytime we post anything on social media about your team, it gets thousands of views and hits and shares. Amazing community support. You've given Jefferson County a lot to be proud of. We got certificates for you that you can hand it out after. I didn't want to run in front of you and steal thunder. So, all right, we're going to get a quick picture. Can you guys gather in just a little bit? Just realizing there's a lot of height on this team. Everyone's super tall. No knees? Okay. All right. Perfect season on three. 1, 2, 3. All right, Cougars on, man. All right, Cougars on 3. 1, 2, 3. There we go. Thank you, gentlemen. All right. Regional Social Studies Fair. Students who choose to take on the challenge of participating in a social studies fair have lots and lots and lots of different options for anything from geography to history to the humanities to political science that they can dive into. And we have a plethora of successful students. Ms. Stephanie Unger is here, and she's going to talk to us tonight about some students who fared very well in the regional fair. And we're going to get those students up on stage and recognize them for their achievement. So, you want the wireless? You want the podium? Here, you talk here. I'll hop up there with them. All right, go ahead.
Okay, I'm Stephanie Unger. I'm the Regional Social Studies Fair Coordinator. And these two young ladies, this is Noelle Nicodemus, and she did a project. She did a project on the history of wound closure, and she is going to represent Jefferson County at the state level on April 29th. This is Jillian Dillo. And she did a project on banned books. And again, it's going to represent Jefferson County at the State Fair, April 29th, both in Charleston.
I have a question. We got to talk to you briefly last time. What do you change after you go through county and then regionals and you're going to states? Do you tweak it or does success stand? Have you had to change anything about your project?
Tweak it a little, I guess.
Presentation, the display board, or you just go back to scratch?
Just tweak the presentation.
How about you?
Well, it was slightly difficult because I got a perfect score and then a near perfect score, which I didn't have any feedback. But I'm going to change my introduction, and that's all.
When the judges say it's perfect, don't change a thing, just roll with it. Congratulations. Thank you both so much. That's social studies. We also are blessed with scientists in our student community. And a science project is more than just a display board. They have to literally formulate a thesis and then prove that thesis over and over again. And we are so excited to be able to recognize those students here this evening. Please welcome Jessica Russler and Shane Price, who are going to introduce our students and bring them up on stage for recognition.
All right. Good evening. Good evening. I just wanted to say, with all of the challenges that have been posed this year, I just want to take pleasure in recognizing these students for their achievements in science fair, and it's a real honor to have them up here before you tonight. I'm just going to read the names. They are Samantha Didion.
And if they would come up here on stage, please, when your name is read.
Mason McConnell. Scott Leonard. McGuire Gleason. Jillian Dillo. Lily Nicodemus. Amanda Beza. Noelle Nicodemus. Addie Topping. Caitlin Speakman. Christopher Cox. Katrina Hernandez. Colby Carter. Dylan Marconi. Eli Dillo. Juliet Wells, and Andrew Russ Stone. Now, we've already had the state science fair, and I just wanted to point out that Andrew Stone and Jillian Dillow earned first place in their respective categories in the science fair. And next year, I hope to fill the stage with folks from Jefferson County. So, thank you.
Thank you, Shane. All right, sir, really quickly, if you would tell folks your name and then just what your project was about.
I'm Scott Leonard, and my project was about enzymic browning.
And what was your hypothesis?
My hypothesis was that that putting fruits inside boxes to keep them sealed would like prevent them from turning brown.
Did it work?
It had mixed results, but it wasn't the best method to use.
You heard it here first. Tested and proven. You're back. How do you, okay, first question before we get into science, how do you do both?
Lots of time.
Both of you are back. We're going to have to get that answer from you as well. So what was your science fair project and hypothesis?
My science fair project was cleaning up oil spills and what method cleans up oil spills the best. And my hypothesis was that ferrofluid would work the best because it's the only method that doesn't have any supplements.
Were you correct?
No.
What does work best?
Absorption and boom and skimmer methods.
I will pretend to know what those are by nodding thusly. All right. And how did you manage to juggle both science and social studies?
Time, a lot of time.
Time management. I failed that class miserably. So talk about your science project. What was your hypothesis and what was your project about?
My project was on the strength of varied wound closure, and my hypothesis was that simple interrupted stitches would hold stronger than some interrupted stitches.
Were you correct?
Yes.
Nailed it. And how about you, sir? What was your project and what was your hypothesis? And if you could tell folks your name.
I'm Andrew, and my project was when mealworms eat styrofoam over time, does their manure have more or less plant beneficial nutrients in their manure?
What was your hypothesis? Did you think they would?
Yeah.
Were you right?
Yes.
So mealworms eat styrofoam, help plants.
Yes.
I would never have believed it. Thank you, sir. And well done at the state level. Thank you very much. Let me get a quick picture with the board. Watch as I dramatically fall off the stage. Okay, we're good. Thank you all very much. And it's not just science and social studies that have all the fun. Oh no, history is also here with the History Bowl. And we have some record-setting students here for our History Bowl and the success that they showed. I would like to welcome Mr. Frampus up to introduce those students who were able to attend and talk a little bit about the History Bowl and the significance of this event. Mr. Frampus, by the way, a social studies teacher at Shepherdstown Middle School.
About 5 years ago, I heard about this History Bowl thing. I said, gosh, a trivia, like a Jeopardy contest for kids and what I teach. I'm like, yeah, I'm all in. So we went to the competition in the regionals and just went there with the goal of see what this is about. 2 years later, we went back right before COVID and they were like, Shepherdstown, who's that? The first Jefferson County school to actually win the regional, and we crushed that competition. COVID happened and we couldn't go. So in the goodness of the West Virginia's heart, they sent us an invitation last year, and we were able to take our 8th graders, even though they themselves didn't qualify, in lieu of our previous year. And I was very proud of those students to go down and see state and see how they competed there. And they did win more than they lost. It's a double elimination. They won, we have 3 and 2. This year's group has absolutely floored me. We did not start History Bowl this year until December because I wanted to hold my breath and see if we were actually going to have it. I didn't want to get my kids all wound up and then not actually go again. They started in December and they actually earned their way into state again. And they're competing against teams that start in 6th grade. I am absolutely stunned with how well these students have handled all of their responsibilities, as well as over 400 questions that they have to answer. I give them 400 questions and they answer 10 of them orally with me, randomly selected, and they're hitting 90s and 100s every single time. I have 1 alternate, I have 4 players, and I have 1 coach who's my right arm who keeps me on track and keeps everybody's numbers straight. We have Scott Leonard, Noel Nicodemus, Sean Viteri, my right arm, Lucy Mitchell, and the best alternate I could hope for, Melena Ryder. Guys, thank you so much.
All right, because I don't like to let you off all that easy, I do want to come up and ask you, favorite historical era? You had to pick an era in history to study for the rest of your academic career, what would it be? Favorite historical figure? All right, that's okay. How about you? Era or figure?
Revolution, Hamilton.
Nice. Okay. There we go. Some applause. How about you, sir?
Like 1800s history
Civil War, U.S. history, all over the place?
or European history at the time.
All right. You got the Triple Crown. This is it. All 3 subjects represented. Very well done. What's your favorite era and or historical figure? See, I'm on the spot. I'm sorry. See, you knew your project. That was good. But when I say the whole of history, it's a lot.
I don't know.
Always just go with the Treaty of Paris. That's what I was taught in European history. Can't go wrong. How about you, sir?
By World War II.
Well, fantastic. Ladies and gentlemen, Shepherdstown Middle School History Bowl winners. Thank you all very much. Photo opportunity now. I'm out of your way. Okay, thank you all very much. You can take your seats. Oh, nope, never mind. Photo op. My bad. We good? All right, thank you all very much. And that's all we have this evening. All right, thank you all very much.
All right, next we have 4A presentation, the Paige Jackson Alumni Room Bond Project Update. Welcome, Mrs. White.
Thank you. I was just going to introduce myself. Good evening, members of the board, and welcome, Mr. Brown. As Mrs. Skinner said, I'm Joyce White, Deputy Superintendent for Operations, and I'm delighted this evening to highlight the Paige Jackson Alumni Tribute Hall Bond Project. For those of you that don't know, the Jefferson County Schools central offices are housed in the former Paige Jackson High School, which was the Black high school in Jefferson County before 1965, when schools were segregated. Today, a room chock full of artifacts and memories serves to honor the men and women who taught and learned there and to preserve that time in our history. Those artifacts have been collected, donated, and curated by a very active group of Paige Jackson alumni. But the room is outdated and the artifacts in the room will not last forever if not preserved for the future. This evening, Randy Jones, Principal Architect for ZMM, will show you the results of many months of work with the Paige Jackson alumni. The alumni worked alongside a committee of invested staff, partnering with interior designer Carly Chapman of ZMM to produce the results we will share with you this evening. While the new tribute hall will preserve our current artifacts, many new artifacts and memories will be added by the alumni as well. We look forward to generations of Paige Jackson alumni friends, relatives, community members, students, and staff taking a walk through history as retold by members of the Paige Jackson alumni. It is my pleasure now to introduce first Randy Jones, He will be followed by introductions of members of the Paige Jackson alumni who are present here tonight. Many members of the alumni will be wrapping up our presentation with their thoughts about the Tribute Hall and briefly sharing their amazing journey through Jefferson County Schools. Randy, we'll start with you.
Good evening. It is my pleasure to be here this evening to show you a few slides that we have put together that represent countless hours that this group here have dedicated to giving us ideas and suggestions on how we can transform this classroom space into something really special. We started meeting as a group in mid-November, and we've had several meetings since then, and this has been a process of evolution. The greatest privilege that I have had is to listen to you all, to the stories that you tell. It's truly inspiring to hear their stories and to try to very humbly present this into a space that will do it justice, that will capture the spirit and the energy and the drive and determination of the folks that went to this school. We could begin with the first slide. So these ideas were developed by our interior designer, Carly Chapman. She's been with us at all the meetings. Our goal was to create a space that would be dynamic, that would incorporate the latest technology, would interest students, it would interest folks that have ties and connections to the area. But also it needs to continue to be used as a space where we can gather, we can have meetings and so forth. So what you'll see is the space on the left as the museum, and then the space on the right when it's used as a meeting space. So it's designed to be very flexible and have a lot of different uses. Next slide. So some of the things that we're trying to incorporate this is we've heard just a little bit of their amazing stories and their recollections of what they were able to share with us. I think these have now been documented. A lot of these have been documented in both on digital media. I think the stories were told verbally and also somewhere on camera. So we will have all of this really rich information that we can then put into interactive displays so that you can go in there and you can either touch a button or put in a code on your phone, and the story of what that display is will come alive and will share with you a lot of times in first person what it was like going to school at Paige Jackson High School back when they were there. Next slide, please. So each of the walls has different features of it. One of the walls will have a timeline that will show the evolution of the schools in Jefferson County, and each of those will have an interactive component to it as well. We also want to be able to display the artifacts that are in the room, but we also want the artifacts to be something that can be rotated in and out. Some of these will be on loan. Some of these are very precious, and they're the last remaining things that they have from their high school days. So we want to make sure that we can preserve those and protect those. Also, we will be, as part of the process, all the photographs are in the room will be digitally archived so that those will also be preserved in the future. Next slide. So again, you can see here, we do think we have some of the original athletic shirts and some of the flags and things like that we can display, or at the very least provide replicas of it. But we want to, again, represent what it was like, almost like a day in the life of what it was like going to school there. We'll have a desk that's in there from one of the originals that one of the alumni was able to donate for us. So it's very exciting. We're doing as much as we possibly can in 800 square feet. And we have a limited budget, but I think we can do it justice. And these folks here, once you hear their stories, I think you'll truly be inspired by what we're trying to accomplish. We hope that construction will begin this summer, and we were hoping to be able to get it done. I think you all have an anniversary that's coming up. I'm not sure we'll quite get there, but at least it'll be in progress and underway. So Thank you.
Joining us this evening, Paige Jackson alumni members, if you'll stand when I call your name, Dolores Foster. And I see him over there via Zoom, Larry Togans. John Brown. He's not here with us this evening. Daniel Jackson. Ernest Dainrich. George Rutherford. Alfred Baylor. I don't see Jeanette Dozier. She was going to join us. I
Couldn't
taught
make it.
Jeanette back in the day. Yeah. Great person. Margaret Gaskins, is she via Zoom? Okay, but attending in her place, April and Alan Hamilton. Have you joined it? Okay. These are the Paige Jackson alumni, and we'd like to hear from them this evening. We'll start with Dolores Foster. Dolores.
Thank you. Good evening to everyone. I feel kind of awkward with my back to the audience, but I know that you're the most important folks here in this room. So I went to a side and Reverend, I'm very proud. Thank you for your community service. Thank you. My name is Dolores Jackson Foster, and I am a product of Jefferson County Schools. Grades 1 through 8, I attended Grandview Elementary School. And in grade 9, I came to Paige Jackson High School. And this, I'm not this one. Oh, I'm usually in the room of the Jefferson County Board of Ed, where the Jefferson County Board of Ed is where I started my high school education. But before I begin, I would like to thank you, Dr. Gibson Learn, and your staff for honoring us in such an excellent way. Not only did they think of all the intricate details of how this room could be, but she involved all of us. And so Dr. Learn, Dr. Gibson, thank you very much. I thank you also for making history come alive. I started my teaching education at Paige Jackson High School. I graduated Paige Jackson, and my first year teaching in 1960-61 was at Paige Jackson High School. So I stand here very proud to be not only a product of Paige Jackson High School, but also one who taught the first year. And one of the few teachers who are still alive to tell the story that they taught at Paige Jackson High School. I want to give homage to the graduates, those who graduated. The young men you see sitting here were also a part of Paige Jackson High School. But I think we need to do more than just say thank you, but we need to say thank you very much, first of all, to Larry Togans, who was in the class of 1965. And when things kind of slowed down as far as honoring and having the reunions, Larry's class stepped in and gave birth to new things in the association. So Larry, thank you very much. Along with his wife, Caroline, she must be somewhere in the room, I'm sure. Caroline also was instrumental. Paige Jackson High School Alumni Association was chartered in 1983. And we began to have reunions like every other year. And finally, we thought that we were getting older, that we need to kind of fast forward this stuff, and we began having reunions every year. So every year in July, the last full week in July, according to Jim Taylor, we had a reunion. And we come together to celebrate. We celebrate each other. We celebrate, the things we have done, the places we have gone, and how we have worked perhaps in the communities where we lived when we left Charlestown, West Virginia. So annually, we would have this reunion, and we came back to Charlestown. But finally, one year we came back, and there was a Paige Jackson room. We were very elated. But to know that this Paige Jackson room is now going to be called the Tribute Hall really, really adds to our being very, 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 very appreciative of what has happened to us. For other folks to know and to appreciate the kinds of educations that we had and the kinds of struggles that we had as students in Jefferson County is really, really very honorable. Because I never dreamed that anyone would think that Paige Jackson High School was as important as I am. Thank you, Dr. Gibson Learn. Thank you very much. And to the Board of Education, thank you for floating the bond and so that we could have this building, have this room in this building. And I can't wait to see what's going to happen to the Paige Jackson High School history for years to come. I'm sure my children and my grandchildren, my great-grandchildren will come back to Charlestown and be able to come in this tribute hall and see what has happened, what was like for me, other than my telling them about Paige Jackson High School. So once more, thank you very much.
Mr. John Brown will be joining us next. Mr. Brown. Jackson. I called you wrong. I'm so sorry.
Good evening, everyone. I'm honored to be here to speak about the school that I graduated from. Growing up, I had to follow my sister's footsteps. That's my sister right there. And number 3, I'm number 5 out of 13. So anyway, I went to, just like she said, I went to Grandview in Hoppers Ferry 1 through 8. Then after you graduate from Hoppers Ferry, we rode the school bus from Hoppers Ferry, past the white school to Paige Jackson. And of course, at that time, it didn't bother me by us leaving us at the, it didn't bother us going past the school because we would just laugh at it. We thought it was funny, you know. So anyway, I came to Paige Jackson and I had to learn. When I say learn, the teachers were very diligent. They made you learn whether you wanted to or not. And back then, we didn't have cell phones or telephones, but they knew everything that you did in school by the time you got home. Why do you do this? Why do you have this? So anyway, we learned how to do a little more sneaky things in school. We had Mr. Dammers, which was our principal, with his son, who is here tonight, was an honorable man. We had candy room, we had the cafeteria, but the cafeteria wasn't like what they had today. Our cafeteria was candy, potato chips, and then you had to go to the auditorium like this and eat your lunch or eat it in your classroom. And in the room where we're going to dedicate that Paige Jackson room is where I had math. I had math in that room. It was the math room of Mrs. Fleming. And QD Fleming, which is her husband, was next door where I had FFA. But 2 months ago, I went to Jefferson High School to talk to the FFA about how we had it as Black students. And I told them we did chess and livestock. And the livestock was hogs or chicken. And you had to, in your project, you had to produce a hog or chicken because you didn't know when the man was coming to check you out. So anyway, then we had a chess, then we built chesses, almost the color of this podium right here. So I was determined to be something of a Jackson because I was, like I said, I was first boy that went to Paige Jackson from the Jackson family, and I had to supposed to carry their name. My other 3 sisters was smarter than I was. So, you know, I was catching on both sides, the teacher side and my parents' side. So I say, Lord have mercy. But anyway, it was honored to go just to think to a Black school, knowing that you're gonna be something, because out of that school came doctors, lawyers, military people, ministers, you could name it. And all of us was very, like I say, very diligent and honored to learn, because what you didn't learn, you could learn it from somewhere else. And the other thing about all black school is that we had concerts, we had dances, we had proms, we had football, we had basketball, we had track, but it was amongst only the black kids. In the year, I can remember the year that we went to Shepherd College to play a basketball tournament, and I think Musselman was the only school that wanted to play us. Now, closer we were to Charlestown, they wouldn't even scrimmage us in football. So we had conflicts, so we had to go to Virginia or Maryland to play our sports, Winchester, Berryville, et cetera, but I'm very proud and honored to attend a school such as Paige Jackson High School. And all I have to say, I'm waiting for this room to be finished so that I can show them what I have done and what we're going to do. Thank you all for having me.
Thank you, Mr. Jackson. Mr. Ernest Dandridge is next.
Good evening. I was called about a week ago to come here and give some perspective from two standpoints. My father was the principal of the school, Paige Jackson High School. And also I was a student at Paige Jackson High School until it closed and we were transferred to Charlestown High. And I want to just give some thoughts and observations about my experience at Paige Jackson High School. The principal / my father used to tell us students to have faith in God, in ourselves, and be positive. He had a saying of which was incorporated in at least one of his school graduation speeches. You are the architect of your future. A belief students needed to work harder to create and achieve goals in life, work harder at endeavors. For example, during football or track season, I remember some boys who lived out in the country stopping by a gas station after practice and buying a cold soda on a warm evening to keep cool while they walked, or combination walked and hitchhiked all the way to the country home, such as out to Summit Point. Another example I want to share was a teacher giving advice about also dealing with things away from the school building. Mr. Q.D. Fleming instructed boys who might have come from very financially limited resource homes to save money and invest in a white shirt and nice tie in case at some point they wanted to apply for an after-school job. Probably the kid could not have afforded a suit or even a sports coat, but at least with the white shirt and nice tie, they could have made some type of impression on the employer to show that they were at least trying. Also, another thing I want to point out was there was broad encouragement for kids to try different activities, such as the band, sports, shop, etc. So not so much was the situation to have a kid who naturally was good at an activity, but there was a chance for a greater number of students to be exposed to activities they might not otherwise have been able to try for themselves. And I think all these examples are reflected on the students who've gone through Paige Jackson. Thank you again for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Dandridge. Next, we'll hear from Mr. George Rutherford.
Good evening. I'm George Rutherford. I'd like to really thank the board for recognizing the Paige Jackson High School and going to keep the memory alive. I just want you to know one thing. Paige Jackson High School only lasted 27 years. Paige Jackson High School building only lasts 14 years. Paige Jackson only graduated student for 23 years. The history of Paige Jackson is really great. You'd be surprised the number of students that wind up being educators, principals of schools all over the country, officers in the military, and so forth. So I hope you really remember that Paige Jackson more than just a building. It's been a whole lot of the people. I can remember very well the first class that graduated from Paige Jackson High School. It wasn't a building, but it was Paige Jackson High School. The building was the Eagle Avenue School. And in history, they will be very proud today to know that their memory is still being remembered. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rutherford. And finally, the last alumni we'll hear from this evening, Mr. Alfred Baylor. Did you want to speak? Yes. I thought you did.
Thank you. I want to thank all of you for inviting us. Now you've heard from the brains. Mr. Damage sent me home more to get my mom to get me back in school. But I would say one thing about Jefferson County and the Board of Education and Paige Jackson in particular. I wouldn't trade anything in my life about growing up here in Jefferson County, attending Paige Jackson High School. Actually, I was born 78 years after the end of the Civil War. I can remember quite distinctly the beginning of the Second World War. I went into, I'm 83, by the way, on 84. So we are quickly passing out of the way. But the teachers were dedicated. And as Junie said, they made you learn, whether you wanted to learn or not. When we left out of Paige Jackson High School, we were quite well prepared to face the world. Whether we went into college, whether we went into the military, whether we went into business. And I'm awfully proud of the ones I went to school with, the ones who preceded me, the ones who came behind me, like Larry Togans and those guys. Paige Jackson, Jefferson County, I would not have traded it for anything in the world. Lois is carrying it on. I will say one thing, the Paige Jackson School itself has stopped. The Paige Jackson name will never, ever stop. As long as the Alumni Association keep on going, because we stood for something. Walked to school, brown bag to school, we had secondhand books, but we rose above that. And I wouldn't trade it for anything in the world. Now, thank you guys. Thank you for having us.
To wrap up the presentation, I just want to thank the Paige Jackson alumni and the alumni that could join us this evening. Your legacy will certainly live on here at Jefferson County Schools, and it's been an honor to work on this project. Mr. Togans, did you want to speak? I know you didn't say you wanted to speak, but we're happy to have you say a few words.
Okay. It'd just be a few words too. I want you to notice I got my Paige Jackson hat on, my Paige Jackson shirt.
You're looking good.
I just want to say, I'm sure the Paige Jackson Alumni Association founders, which included Miss Catherine Jackson Norton, which is the sister of Mrs. Foster, Mr. James Taylor, Mrs. Dorothy Taylor, Mr. Bobby Brown, Mrs. Helen Branson, Mrs. Marvin Hughes, and other family members would be very impressed with what we've seen so far. For them, I would like to thank the entire board, the superintendent, and the staff for putting all this time into this project. I'm very impressed with the project. I spent my 7th grade year through graduation at Paige Jackson. I know every inch of that building, from the shower room to the furnace room to the classroom, and the room that the board meets in, which was my English class and the library. Thank you so much, Madam Superintendent and the board members for this project.
Thank you.
Mr. Jones, I calculate you have about 15 weeks to get this project. Okay. No pressure, but 15 weeks. Okay. You can go home now and start working. Just kidding. All right. Thank you very much for being here this evening. We appreciated it. And Mrs. White, did you have anything for the Deputy Superintendent of Operations update? It's all good things, so
All
take your
good
time.
things. This evening, I do have my Deputy Superintendent of Operations update. Currently, we have other updates on bond projects. Our architects will be meeting next week with a committee of our expert education staff to determine design and layout in the following areas for our 2 new schools at Ranson Elementary and Shepherdstown Elementary. We'll be looking at the food service cafeterias. We'll have an initial meeting, which will be held with ZMM's food service consultant to kick off with our own Director of Food Services, Dylan Bites, a meeting to discuss the feng shui in the kitchen. This will be a series of questions about equipment preferences, etc. The second meeting will include a review of the full kitchen design. In art and music, we're going to ask our art and music teachers at the 2 schools to meet, and they're going to focus on interior requirements like casework, sinks, marker board placement, etc. ZMM's interior designer, Carly Chapman, will facilitate that meeting and work with those teachers. We'll also be discussing our STEAM labs in a committee meeting. Again, the interior designer, Carly Chapman, will be joining stakeholders, which include Tara Mahoney and Mary Lind, the coordinators of instruction for those grade levels. Carly has designed multiple STEAM labs, so she'll be facilitating this meeting to determine what our needs are for our students and these STEAM rooms. The Media Center Committee will be meeting, and they're going to work with our media specialists at these schools to make sure that our ideas for a modern media center align with the users, the students that will be using them. Carly, the interior designer, will be in a meeting with that committee as well. We'll also be beginning IT technology work, and ZMM's electrical and technology engineer will discuss the technology needs of our 2 new schools. This meeting will include a representative from the WVDE technology field, as well as our own technology team here at Jefferson County Schools. And finally, ZMM will be meeting with maintenance, and they'll be bringing their mechanical and plumbing engineer. They're going to review with Brandon Caton and his maintenance crew any preferences they may have for mechanical equipment, plumbing, fixtures, lighting, etc. In technology, Dr. Jen Rowan has been very busy securing us emergency connectivity funds. As a response to the COVID-19 pandemic, the federal government issued $7.17 billion to provide the emergency connectivity fund for all entities that qualify for E-rate, such as Jefferson County Schools. And they were organized through the Universal Service Administrative Company, and they streamlined the process for us to apply through their electronic portal. And we applied for funding for $400 up to students for laptops, as well as Wi-Fi hotspots and additional computers for classrooms for students who, I forgot my charger, I don't have a charger, I forgot my laptop, etc. So we wanted to cover students at all times. The ECF program has helped the district maintain $1,071,030 in local funding to help support current and future technology initiatives. On top of technology, doing a one-to-one initiative and applying for these and receiving that funding, to help our schooling system reimburse ourselves, get some more laptops for our students. This has been an incredible boon to our school system. So I'm very proud of Dr. Rowan and her team here at Technology. And that wraps up my superintendent update for this evening.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
All right, next we have the approval of the minutes. Is there a motion to approve the minutes of the regular board meeting held March 14th, 2022, and the special board meetings held March 14th and 21st, 2022? Thank you, Ms. Ogden. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Osborne. Any discussion or questions? All in favor of the minutes from March 14th, and March 21st, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. All right, next we have citizens' comments. And just a reminder that you're limited to speak for 3 minutes, and you're prohibited from making negative or derogatory comments using a name or position by which an individual can be identified. Comments may not be threatening, profane, vulgar, or abusive, or the speaker will be required to cease his or her comments. First up, we have Joanne Curran, followed by Karen Buck.
Tonight, I don't want to confront and laugh at your absurdities. I want to appeal to your thoughts and maybe spark you to think outside of the present box. What's the difference between parents and teachers? What's the difference between a home and a school? What's the difference between a family and a school day? Is there a difference? I think we can agree there are, because all your decisions say there is a difference. Your decisions say that you think families can't do it without your help. Here's a list of school responsibilities. Teach academics successfully, and that would include the arts. Provide data to prove their success. I guess that's it. And here's a list of parent responsibilities only. Name their children, love their children, feed their children, including obtaining government assistance as needed on their own. Keep them physically, emotionally, and mentally healthy. Give them medicine, teach them life skills. Talk to them, comfort their emotions, teach them social skills and behaviors, how to treat other people, always be honest, respectful, empathetic, and humble. Kiss and hug them, laugh and cry with them, teach them their own family's faith and values, teach their children about sex any way they want, anytime they think is right. Counsel or get outside counsel as the parents and doctors decide. Discipline their children, make their own arrangements and decision to fill up after school hours. And because nothing in life goes perfectly, families can figure it out themselves. Parents can seek help from family, friends, faith group, professional, and any government assistance services they need. Parents know their own family's needs. Things schools should not do. Do not love the students. Do not feed the students. Do not rename the students. Do not keep secrets from parents. Do not teach students to keep secret from parents. Do not give medicine without parental approval. Do not teach anything related to sex outside of human or animal biology. Do not teach them any values or social behaviors other than those that they can learn on the playground anyway. Do not offer any opinions or views on faith. Do not touch students. Do not direct or comfort student emotions. Because when you do these things, it's the reason we can't trust you and it makes us enemies. Why can't we agree? Why can't we just be friends again? Why do you feel the need to overpower us on these things? Don't try the argument that some parents don't do all these things, so schools have to. Schools have been trying to do parents' jobs for at least the 3 generations I've been alive. We should have seen some improvement by now. You have no proof, no data that you've improved the lives of students as children or as adults, just the opposite. If God thought parents were unnecessary, he wouldn't have made them male and female and tasked them to love each other, to raise and protect their own children. Schools are not the center of a child's life. Stop underestimating and disrespecting parents. It doesn't matter if you like our decisions. It doesn't take a village or a school to raise a child. It takes a family. When student scores hit the top, then you can think about giving us advice. It doesn't matter if you like our decisions.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Next up, we have Karen Buck, followed by Caleb Hayden.
Ready? Let me know when it's time.
Whenever you're ready, ma'am.
Okay.
We've got some incredible students, teachers, and that Paige Jackson alumni, we may want to listen to them about education. This is my opinion directed solely to this board with the exception of Mr. Brown respectfully and that leadership team. Parents, I will be addressing pedophilia in our schools. You may want to mute me and listen later. Present company accepted. I apologize. This situation has bothered myself and many parents for quite some time. Something isn't right here. Pedophilia in our schools is a disturbing and horrific subject, and it is happening in Jefferson County schools. It is not discussed and quickly swept under the rug. 800,000 kids a year go missing. Personally, I think it's more. Here in Jefferson County schools, there have been 6 assaults on children and young people in the last 5 years that we know about. I'll address 2 such incidents. In one high school, we've had 2, possibly 3, sexual assaults on students in the same school, under the same principal and the same superintendent. That principal, supposedly a third party, who didn't know anything about it, was promoted to an administrative position at the main office. At the other school, a student was absent for 30 or 40 days and no one noticed. This was when virtual learning came into being. That teacher, a third party who didn't know anything about it, was fired. So one was promoted and one was fired. At a recent Board of Education forum for candidates, I posed a question to 2 important current school people. After citing the 2 school incidents, I asked the question, what are you doing to address the issue of pedophilia in our schools, and how are you combating this? The first school person said they couldn't address it because it concerned employees. Okay, but what about addressing the situation and how you're going to combat it? The second school person answered by saying, if we tell the parents that we're addressing this, the parents will get very upset. So we've got apathy and fear. The other 3 candidates answered my question completely and to my satisfaction. Now, if you are promoting a very progressive and permissive atmosphere in the schools, if you are refusing to address pedophilia in the schools, if you are scared to address it, then you are enabling pedophilia in our schools. Let's address this before it turns into a monster like it did in Berkeley County. How many Berkeley County administrators have we hired? Yeah. Good night.
Thank you. Next up is Caleb Hayden, followed by Sandy Knorlin.
Hi, my name's Caleb Hayden. I'm a captain for the Jefferson County Wild lacrosse team. This is our first year for the team. This year, we've dealt with a series of adversity between not having enough players for a season to now not knowing if we have a season altogether. Not knowing if we have a season altogether. Friday, March 18th, the board announced we were no longer allowed to use Jefferson or Washington's turf field. For whatever reasons you may have for this decision, I want you to know some of the consequences that this decision caused. That next week, we had a game scheduled at Jefferson, March 22nd at 7 p.m. This game was set for multiple weeks in advance. Family had called off work, friends were talking about it, the community was involved, and most of all the players were excited for this game. Your decision not allowing field use changed that game to March 21st at 6 p.m., changing availability for referees, changing availability for family members to make this game. And so we had to switch the game to, luckily, Charlestown Middle School allowed us to use their field. But since the conditions at Charlestown Middle School aren't what they are at Jefferson Field or Washington's Field, many family members were unable to attend, and it was hard for a lot of family members to not see the first game in county history for a lot of their sons. Since not allowing the field use, all of our home games have now been changed. Referees have had to change work schedules, some not even be able to make certain games. Most importantly, the pride of playing the first men's lacrosse game in the county history at Jefferson High School is taken, and Washington High School as well. We made the best of our situation, and thanks to Charlestown Middle School, we were still able to play our game. After this game, 3 Jefferson Wild lacrosse players, including myself, approached the administrator at Jefferson High School. The administrator was very thoughtful and heard our concerns, going out of her way by calling AstroTurf and speaking with the athletic director. I don't know the results of this conversation. While I wish they were good, the administrator stated herself that the remaining 3 home games that we had would be no issue. I ask that if you think that 3 home games might be too much to ask on your fields, I ask that you have in consideration April 11th is our senior night, and all of us seniors would love to have our game either at Washington on your turf fields or at Jefferson. We have banners made with all of our pictures, and it would mean a lot to the team and to the county. We would deeply appreciate it, and it is one game. I know 3 games might be a lot to ask, but 1 game is really what we want. If you allow it, we will be deeply appreciative, and I know that myself, along with Miss Sandy and Mr. Larry, would somehow in our way return the favor. I'd like to end it off by this past weekend, Jefferson County lacrosse team made history as we won our first game in county history. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is Sandy Norland, followed by William Ratledge.
Hi, good evening. I'm Sandy Norline, co-founder and team manager of the Jefferson County Wild Lacrosse team. I think most of you have gotten a letter from me in the last week detailing our history, and I'm not going to take the time to go through that now. I apologize, Mr. Brown, that you do not have access to that. As a quick summary, we do have 4 Washington High School team members. We have 15 Jefferson High School team members, and we have 1 homeschool. And you can see a good portion of our team here tonight supporting us. While we really appreciate the use of the fields for our games at Charlestown Middle School, who have been very gracious, it seems to be the scheduling, we seem to have been able to work out with the 2 different schools, with Washington and with Jefferson, to be able to utilize those fields. It seems that there's a sticking point over lining the fields. I have talked to representatives at Pioneer Athletics, who they make chalk, aerosol chalk, as well as a removable paint. And I have spoken to AstroTurf as well. They do all recommend, and I've talked to several coaches across the county, all of them utilize and recommend the Pioneer removable paint, even above and beyond the chalk paint. It's not a paint, it's just a sprayable chalk, just like your sidewalk chalk. The chalk washes away with just a rain shower or a broom. We've done a demonstration that has been presented to Mr. Keaton, and I think ultimately he has presented it to his higher ups as well. I have not tried the removable paint. However, I know that the coach at Harrison County, the coach at Morgantown High School, and the coaches up at Martinsburg all use the removable paint. It does leave a residue if you don't clean it. And Martinsburg did not clean theirs at the end of last season, and so they could still see their lines during football season. And I feel like that is one of the sticking points. They're beautiful fields, they're brand new fields, and we would be honored to be able to utilize them to support our community, to support our boys who represent all of our high school and a very community-based lacrosse program. We are making history. We are the first lacrosse team here in Jefferson County. Lacrosse is coming. It's being supported. We're building it up from the top down. And hopefully one day, possibly before those fields get relined, we will be in the schools. So I ask you now to help us out, get our team on those fields, let the community be behind us. Let's fill those stands and bring all of those peers and continue to build what is inevitably coming to our county. So thank you.
Thank you. Next up on Zoom is William Ratledge.
Can you hear me, ma'am?
Yes, sir. Whenever you're ready.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. For over a year, I've made a simple request of the Jefferson County IT staff. Provide me an account with student permissions so I can view the virtual activities as my students see them. The student view is inadequate and has failed me on multiple occasions. Last year, I had a virtual student in tears because what I saw and the questions she saw were not the same. I could not understand why she was unable to answer the question, and she was frustrated because she could not give me what I asked for. This was a straight A student who earned a 97% in my advanced math class. 2 months ago, to save time and allow for faster student feedback, I used the county recommended Canvas in Canvas quiz to assess my students. The students could not see the pictures in the quiz, therefore could not answer any questions. Last Friday, I published a Canvas quiz to my students. Due to my error, they were either assigned 3 quizzes, no quizzes at all, or worse, the wrong quiz. If I had the student level permissions account I requested a year ago and again this month, I would have discovered this before my students. Had I discovered the error, I would have fixed it, avoiding my students' frustration and potentially improve their test scores. They did not do well last Friday. Because of this unfortunate event, I will lose 2 instructional days to reteach the material, which I did today, and retest my students tomorrow. It would have been unfair and even further frustrating to them to drop a test on them today without notice, forcing them to study over the weekend. If the IT staff keeps telling me it is against local, state, and federal policies, laws, or regulations to grant my request, I have repeatedly asked them to provide me the specific policies, laws, or regulations which prohibit them from granting my request. They will not provide me the documents or point me towards the actual references they cite. This is unacceptable. It was unacceptable last year. It's unacceptable now. I thought the reason we are here is to enable and support the students. My students are beginning to excel. They are starting to understand and appreciate math. The IT staff seems to think this is a personal attack. It is not. It is a teacher following his belief that the kids matter. Please either direct the IT staff to grant my request or provide me the references I need when I appeal this to the state's Department of Education and Governor. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. All right, moving on to the consent agenda. Ms. Loring, are there any changes to note?
Yes, sir. And thank you and welcome, Mr. Brown. On the superintendent's recommendations concerning personnel, on number 9, transferring into a different position, the bus operator who is transferring into a supervisor position, that is actually a 240-day contract. So that correction is 240. Okay. And then on the superintendent's sign-offs, on the transfer for number 4, there's a deletion there. That individual has actually rescinded that new appointment. And so that is being deleted from our recommendations to you this evening due to the rescinding of that opera position.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there a motion to accept the consent agenda with the adjustment to number 9 and number 4? Thank you, Ms. Ogden. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. Any discussion or questions? All in favor of the consent agenda as amended, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Thank you, Mrs. Lawrence. All right, moving on to unfinished business, 13A, request approval for a vendor for dust mop services.
Good evening again. We have 2 vendors who have made a bid for dust mop services for the district. Superior Industrial with a bid of $13,124.80 and UniFirst with a bid of $23,642.88. This evening, I'll be recommending Superior Industrial to receive that bid.
Is there a motion to accept Superior Industrial for the vendor for dust mop services? Thank you, Mr. Osborne. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Dr. Joy. All in favor of approving Superior Industrial for the vendor for dust mop services, say aye.
Aye.
Oppose? Thank you. Next, we have request approval for a vendor for pest control services.
Well, we had a couple of vendors at the pre-bid meeting for pest control services. We had one pest control company return a bid. That is Glad Hill Pest Control with a bid of $8,188. That is the vendor that we will be recommending. It is also our current vendor.
I'm sorry, you said it's our current vendor?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Is there a motion to accept Glad Hill Pest Control as the vendor for pest control services? Thank you, Ms. Ogden. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Osborne. Any question or discussion? All in favor of accepting Glad Hill Pest Control as the vendor for pest control services, say aye.
Aye.
Oppose? Thank you. Next, we have request approval for a vendor for waste removal services.
We had two bids for waste removal services for our district. The first was Waste Management with a bid of $133,000, $190, spread it out, $133,195.08. And Republic Services with a bid of $172,354.80. We will be recommending Waste Management, our current vendor, this evening.
All right, is there a motion to accept Waste Management as the vendor for waste removal services? Thank you, Ms. Ogden. Is there a second? Thank you, Mr. Osborne. Any question or discussion? All in favor of approving Waste Management as the vendor for waste removal services, say aye.
Aye.
Oppose? Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, 14A, the review of the fiscal year 22 financial data.
Thank you for having me tonight.
Good evening.
I have two presentations. First, the financial overview. Okay. Can you go to the next slide? So the first slide is through January 31st, our total general revenue received is $55 million. As you will see, the largest of that was local funds at 53%, followed closely by state funds at 44%. Our lowest amount would be the general funds for federal, and that's basically our Medicaid billing. And then the 3% was miscellaneous, mostly made up of indirect cost, your table referendum fees. The next slide, we talked about the expenditures. You'll see our total expenditures are at 47 million. Of these, 80% are salary and benefits, and I'll talk about that in the next slide. The remaining 20% is spread over the other few items here. Purchase professional services and technical services. An example will be training, development, contracted professionals. Purchase services of other water and sewage includes cleaning and maintenance. Your purchase services, other advertising, contracts with other agencies, transportation, then you have supplies, plant and equipment, and then others is going to be dues and fees, those kind of things. They're all very nominal compared to the 80% of salary and benefits. I want to spend a little bit of time and talk about that. You know, as a services industry, the majority of our expenditures will be salary and benefits. You can see we have a number of different benefits we offer, and our benefit costs are right around 30%. So if you look at an employee who's making $50,000 a year, their benefit costs are going to be right around $65,000. And of course, that would increase year to year because salaries increase, benefit costs increase as well. At the end of FY21, our fund balance was very strong at about 7.5 million. Again, that comes directly from the board being fiscally conservative and making sure that we're planning for the future because you never know when you might need it. And so It's just going to show that you also have put some money into different reserve kind of accounts as far as the digital one-to-one that Joyce talked about earlier, as well as buses and vehicles, those kind of things, one-time costs. So the leadership team, we met with the principals over the last few weeks to look at our needs for the next fiscal year. As you know, we want the students to drive our budget. And so with each principal, they came in with different needs and different things they were seeing. But there was a few things that was very similar across the board. One was the need for increased social and emotional support, both for our staff and for our students. And of course, increased intervention services for our students. And of course, the increase and continued investment and implementation of the recruitment and retention plan, which this board approved a few months ago. I don't know if anybody has any questions.
Thank you.
Oh, sure.
When will, I guess this isn't for you, maybe it's for Dr. Dixon, but when will we see more about this recruitment and retention plan?
Yeah, I believe that some of the things have already been put into place, and then there are some that we are working on. And I think that there's another phase coming up very soon that will be presented, but a lot of it will be in the budget when we do our budget presentation as well, and that will be in May.
May?
Yes, ma'am. You're welcome.
All right, next we have the proposed levy rates for fiscal year 23.
For FY 23 proposed levy rates. There's three main levies, and I will go into detail into each one of them here in the next few slides. But levy rates are not set by the school system, as many of you know. It's the assessor's office that certifies the values of the property and projects the total property tax that will be collected. And approximately 75% of levies that are collected and tax collections go Jefferson County Public Schools. First, I want to spend just a few minutes talking about the regular levy. The regular levy is projected to increase by about 2.3 million. The important thing to highlight here is that this increase does not equate to more revenue when it comes to our regular levy, because it has an inverse relationship with state aid. So it's basically our regular levy will be neutral. Next is the bond levy. And so back on November 11th of 2020, the voters approved a $43 million 15-year bond term. And so the money that is collected goes straight to MVC because we are required to have 5 to 10% to be collected and placed in reserve by the end of the bond. Now, the excess levy is where I will spend most of my time on. Per the Code of West Virginia, boards of education are required to do the following. They're required to set proposed excess levy rates, submit to the state auditor's office for approval, and reconvene on the third Tuesday in April to officially adopt the approved levy rates. Our current levy call, which voters approved on November 4th of 2020, and will be in place until June 30th of 2026. Any excess levy above this $22.4 million must be used as stated in the levy call. And the levy call states that it needs to be used 80% for personnel and 20% at the board discretion. The excess levy revenue is projected to increase by almost 2.8 million. As you can see, the assessed values have increased by almost 15%. While we are seeing property values increase across the nation, this is an indication that Jefferson County is growing. It's a desirable place to move, it's a desirable place to live, and it's a desirable place to have your children in schools here. So that's a wonderful thing. As the largest employer in the county, this money will be used to invest in our staff and capital projects. As you are aware, the board approved an intensive recruitment and retention plan, which these funds will help supplement. A few, but not all of the examples of how we are going to invest in the planning of our staff are through, one is the mentor program, the payment for employment qualification costs, extended attendance bonuses for service personnel, long-term substitute equity, micro badging, referral bonus, tuition reimbursement. That's just to name a few. It's all in detail in the recruitment and retention plan that was approved a few months ago. As for long-term capital projects, we're looking at replacing some HVAC systems that are old and aging. some roof replacements, and then some bus replacements as well. I wanted to highlight this slide because it shows the trend data over the last many years. And if you look, you'll see that the projected growth, while this year is great, you have to remember that back in FY 2009, 10 through 13, we saw a dip in that. And so just now, we're now getting back up to where we were back in 2009. While we are projecting a substantial increase this year, we know that this is not the norm, and we want to continue to be conservative stewards of the money to ensure long-term stability while mindfully investing in our staff. This has been a priority of the board for many years, and we want to continue that as we look forward towards the future. I don't know if anybody has any questions.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right. Next up, we have the summer pay structure proposal.
Okay, a couple of these things that we have for you this evening is a pay structure for the summer. Summer pay provides school districts with the flexibility to adjust the structure without the restrictions that we tend to face with the regular employment term. Therefore, we are recommending a change for the summer 2022 pay to add 18% on the employee's daily rate. We can adapt in future years should our budget availability change. This adjustment would apply to all positions and is a benefit to our employees to provide them with an increase in pay where we can. Our current funding source will cover the additional expenditure, and on the board agenda in the attachment was a breakdown of our programs and the links and where that increase would be their daily rate plus 18%.
And
So
Ms.
we're
Lawyer, are
seeking
you
your-
asking us to take action on the proposal?
Yes, ma'am. We're asking for action on changing the summer pay structure.
Are you done?
I'm done,
Okay,
yes.
Thanks. Is there a motion to approve the summer pay structure proposal? Thank you, Ms. Ogden. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Osborne. Any discussion or questions?
So we just go over again, Ms. Lauren, what was the background in this, and how long is this sustainable? You know, what, I mean, obviously, I know it's difficult. Sometimes teachers are obviously spent by the time summer comes. And it's difficult to get staff to be able to do that, and we do have a lot of catching up to do, but what was the, like, how did this amount come up? What was the justification for?
Well, the 2 points that you made, was the background into looking at changing the pay structure. Obviously, it's something that is of great interest to us to be able to afford salary increases where we can for our staff. And as I mentioned, the summertime does provide more of that flexibility in order to do so. And that relates directly to what you mentioned in your question about the sustainability. It's based on budget availability. So if we're at this point next year and we don't have the budget available like we do this year, then we can modify it. If we need to decrease it, if we need to adjust it, or if it's something that we have to step away from, then we can do that in the summertime. But it is an area where in the summer, like I mentioned, that we could put a little bit more into the pay of our staff.
How'd you come up with 18%?
That's a great question. We looked at various models that would help us apply with consistency and equity for all of our staff. So that way we didn't have, when you look, in West Virginia that the daily rates are based on your salary. Your daily rate is your education level plus your years of experience. And we have some individuals who have been teaching summer school for a very long time. And of course, we have some newer individuals as well.
So if we were to look at it from a stipend, which is one way of adding to the daily rate, when you calculated it, it didn't really apply equally or in the best interest of everybody. There's a little bit of disparity across the board. So looking at a percentage seemed to be a more sound structure. And that way, everybody is getting 18%. So there's no disparity in that arena.
We have some experience last year as well.
Yes,
Did you have we have a hard time finding teachers last summer?
yes, we did. All staff members to support the summer school was very difficult.
And I assume we're anticipating as robust a program this year as we had last year.
Yes, yes.
Will the program be the same as last year, or are we looking at something different this year? Cause us to need more or less staff?
No, we're anticipating the same levels of staff.
What was the rate last year? I mean, was it a rate plus a number or was this?
Just there's flat daily rate.
Just flat? Oh, okay.
Mhm. And looking at the numbers too, when we were trying to decide if we would increase the daily rate by a dollar amount or a stipend, one of the things that we were trying to do is make it an attractive rate too. So that way it does allow us to be competitive with the summer programs in surrounding areas. So that's the advantage of it, is that it does offer a competitive rate, which in the summertime, you know, like I had mentioned with the flexibility, it provides us with that advantage to do so. Yes.
Yeah, I think it's a great idea to give the teachers and staff what closer to what they're worth. I think it's a great idea.
So I can, yeah. Thank you.
So we have any other questions? There's a motion on the floor. All in favor of approving the summer pay structure proposal of the 18%, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. On behalf of the staff, thank you very much.
Next, we have the tuition reimbursement program.
In the recruitment and retention plan, tuition reimbursement was approved by the board. And we have for you this evening the parameters and requirements for effectively offering a tuition reimbursement program for Jefferson County School employees. Highlights of the program include reimbursement is based on budget availability. It would be done on a first come, first served basis. The priority would be on teacher certification seeking programs. It allows for direct pay partnerships with the state's alternative certification pathways that we have now available. Non-certification seeking employees may also apply with certain conditions. The individual must maintain acceptable grades for the course to be considered for reimbursement. Reimbursement is to not exceed the highest in-state tuition rate. And proof of payment and a grade report must be submitted as part of the application process. An agreement will be required before educational costs are provided to the employee, with the condition that the individual who leaves employment within 3 years of the date on which the reimbursement or the direct payment is made shall be required to repay the money or supports received. Looking at our surrounding areas and the tuition reimbursement programs that they offer, this is a very competitive reimbursement program. We can start this reimbursement program upon approval of these parameters this evening. Employees who meet the eligibility criteria can apply at the end of this semester. And alternative certification employees can participate in the direct pay option more immediately. The tuition reimbursement program benefits our employees and is an excellent opportunity that we can provide to them as they pursue and develop in this meaningful career.
I have two questions.
Let's make a motion first.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay. Is there a motion to approve the tuition reimbursement program? Thank you, Mr. Osborne. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. All right, no questions?
Is there a grade requirement?
Yes.
What is
A
that?
C.
A C.
Mhm.
And what's the funding source?
The funding source was part of the recruitment and retention plan. So when you had approved the recruitment and retention plan a few months ago, then that money was then allocated into this budget. And I don't have that with me, so I'm not sure off the top of my head about how much was supposed to move, but we have a good amount.
Is this just this year or just for next year?
No, it's ongoing until, as long as we have the funds to sustain it. So we would have to review it on an annual basis as part of the budget process. We had a component of tuition reimbursement in the past. So it is exciting to be able to have this back in Jefferson County and to expand upon it. Like I had mentioned, to be a competitive program with our surrounding areas is a great opportunity. So again, thank you very much.
Well, we are in the business of education and we certainly want to encourage.
Yes.
Yep,
Very much so.
absolutely.
All right, so the motion on the table is the tuition reimbursement program. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you, ma'am.
Right, thank you. Thank you.
All right, next we have superintendent's comments. Dr. Gibson, do you have any this evening? No? All right. This evening is the meeting that we don't adjourn, so I'll ask for a motion to recess the meeting until we can reconvene on Tuesday, April 19th. Is there a motion? Thank you, Mr. Osborne. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Ogden. All in favor of recessing the meeting until Tuesday, April 19th, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you very much.